Ladies and gentlemen, at the Mentone Bowl this afternoon, we're going to see the playoff, the final of the 7th National All-Star Singles Championship of Australia between, on my left, Mr. Joe Velo, 35 years of age from Wollongong, and on my right, Mr. Mick Neylan, 19 years of age from Mentone. Joe, it sounds like from the applause that you're about 2 frames behind already.
That's just about it. That's just about it.
Now, tell me, you had a bit of bad luck this morning. You bowled 10 strikes in a row twice, and then what happened? The fingers go to jelly or the knees?
I think as me I went, not anybody else. I don't think it was that. I just missed it, that's all. Yeah, I've got no excuse. No excuse at all.
You've bowled how many 300 games so far?
2 so far. 1 sanction and 1 open play.
And Mick, what about you? What's your best in competition?
289.
289 here?
Yeah.
On these lanes?
On these lanes.
The local boys got it made. Anyway, the tournament started from 22 centres in 5 states. There were approximately 2,500 competitors, 36 qualifiers and then 12 finalists. The average was 196.5 for all finalists in the games bowled, so you must agree that that's a tremendous average. I've told you about Joe, who's 35 years of age and comes from Wollongong. What I didn't tell you was that in 1965 and 1966 he won this National All-Star Singles Tournament here at Mentone. Mick is 19 years of age, is born and bred here in Mentone. In fact, he started his bowling career at this very bowling centre. His father and grandfather before him were born and bred in Mentone, so he is truly the local boy. He was 9th in this particular tournament last year, and of course is bowling in his first National All-Star Singles final playoff. The first prize is the Don Carter Trophy, and also the major part of the first prize is to represent Australia at the Bowling Proprietors Association's American All-Star Tournament to be held in Miami, Florida from May the 3rd to the 9th, and the total prize money there is something like $70,000. And so, wishing the best of luck to both of you contestants, we'll now introduce the tournament director and get the show underway. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. I'll now invite contestants, both junior and senior all-star finalists, to commence their shadow balls, please.
That's a pretty good start for Mick Neylan. It's only a shadow ball to get the feel of the lanes. Here's Joe Velo on lane 16. Just a shadow ball. The sort of thing they used to call in the sort of park cricket, trial ball. Anyway, to tell you more about the contest this afternoon, here is one of television's bowling experts, Ray Carter. Good afternoon, Ray.
Good afternoon, Dick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On lane 16, we see Mick Neylan bowling his practice ball on lane 16. I think he'd like to have kept those two for the start of the game.
Now the contest is about to get underway. The best of 6 frames. The contestants had already bowled a number of frames, resulting in Mick Neylan being ahead in his division on total pinfall. And as play goes on this afternoon, we'll be able to show you the scores of the bowlers on our own special scoreboard. Now, this is Mick Neylan, commencing on 15. His first ball is into the pocket. And as they say in the classics, that's the way to go. Joe Velo on 16. Many sympathetic ahs for Joe there as he left the 4-pin standing. Joe told me before we came on the air that I was to give his employer a bit of a plug. Otherwise, if he won the tournament, his employer wouldn't let him get away. So, Mr. Employer, here's a plug for you. An old saying in bowling, look after the spares and the strikes will look after themselves.
Might point out at this stage that the tournament is played under match play conditions, whereby each bowler bowls 2 consecutive frames. Mick Neylan began on lane 15. Now Joe Velo bowls his second frame on 15.
Pretty heavy on the head pin, and he's left the 7. You might be able to hear sporadic applause at times in the background. On the 2 adjacent lanes, that's lanes 13 and 14, the junior final is in progress. But our attention concentrated on Joe Velo as he picks up his spare on lane 15. So 2 spares to start with for Joe on the first of 6 complete games. Both bowlers starting from scratch. He's done it again. There's no question about it that Mick Neylan, the local boy, is a very popular favourite, and he's got a lot of his friends along here this afternoon to encourage and support him. Joe Velo, one of Australia's best-known tournament bowlers, and as I mentioned at the start, the winner of this particular tournament in 1965 and 1966. Neylan on 15. This is rough. He's left 1 there. That's the end of his perfect game, the 9-pin standing. $29 in the first frame to Neylan, 19 in the first frame to Joe Velo. Neylan trying to pick up this 9-pin, spare on 15. Looks good.
Now that completes Mick Neylan's 3rd frame. Joe Velo will now bowl his 3rd frame on lane 16.
That's a good strike for Joe. That's the first time he's taken down all 10 pins.
Have a very interesting match here between these 2 bowlers, Joe Velo and Mick Neylan. In the head-to-head qualifying rounds here, Mick Neylan defeated Joe Velo in both games, took both games, so that Mick goes into this game with a certain amount of confidence.
2 left, 4 and 7. Right at the end of this particular frame by Joe Velo, we'll take the scoreboard and maybe give you a little explanation of the scoring for those of you who aren't familiar with the scoring system of 10-pin bowls. Joe tries to pick up these 2. He's got them. Score, you can see the cross. Let's take Neylan. He's just about to bowl. We'll go back to the board. after he bowls this one. It's there. We've got scorers in front of the board, but that doesn't matter. That's part of the thing. They just don't get there by accident. You'll see in the boxes, the small boxes in one, Neylan with the crosses. That indicates a strike. The diagonal stroke in the box inside the score for each frame, those are the numbered 1, 2, 3 to 10, indicates a spare. The number of pins knocked down with the first ball. Then if he makes the rest, it's a spare. He's left the 10 pin in the corner, and so you'll see that will be marked as a 9 by the scorer in the left-hand side. He's just marked it in 9 there. In 5, and if Mick is successful in knocking down the 10 pin and getting the 10 pins down with 2 balls in each frame, then the diagonal stroke will be put across to indicate a spare. And he's missed, and that's only 9. So just going back to the scoring, if you score a strike, you are entitled to count 10 pins plus the number of pins you knock down with your next 2 deliveries. It's a strike for Velo. If you get a spare, that is 10 pins down with 2 deliveries in the one frame, you're entitled to count 10 pins plus what you pick up with your next 1 single delivery. So the strike has a double value and the spare has a single value, and when you leave some pins up, as you can see, they don't count very much at all. Velo on 15, just to the right hand side of the pocket, the 1-3 pocket, and he left the 2 pin, which is immediately left of and behind the head pin or the number 1 pin.
It was a costly mistake of Mick Neylan's there. It meant that he lost the advantage of the 10 pins which he had.
Velo's got this one to make his spare. Neylan on 16. He's left 2, the 4 and 7 pins, the 2 extreme left-hand pins. The 4th pin in the 3rd row and the 7 pin in the 4th row of pins. Pins set out in a pyramid fashion, with the number 1 pin at the front row, the 2 and 3 then behind, then 3, 4, 5 and 6, and 7, 8, 9 and 10. It's there, it's good. And that's a spare in the 6th to Neylan, who had 97 in the 5th. Velo had 99 in the 5th with the spare in the 6th. And so at the moment, Velo holds a lead after 5 completed frames of 2 pins, even though Neylan has had more strikes. That's in head pin, and very heavy on the head pin, and he's left what we call, Ray, a split.
Yes, and a very difficult split. Not impossible, of course, because the pin on the right-hand side of the screen is slightly ahead of the pin on the left, so that he can deflect the 6 pin across, and that's what he's going to try and do. At this stage of the game, with the scores almost equal, he needs to pick this one up.
It's a good try, but not good enough. If he hit it too full on instead of right out on the right-hand edge, and that's another error. Velo now on 16. It's in there, but he's left.
Boy.
An impossible. Well, nothing's impossible in this game except the ball coming back after you've bowled it. And eventually that does happen, but it comes underground. But the 8 and the 10, that's a bad one, and I don't know. I think Velo will just try and pick up the 1 at this stage.
So. Yes, he'll go for 1 pin here. and took the easy one for the right-hand bowler. Anything going across to the left-hand side of the lane follows the natural swing of a right-handed bowler, and that's the one that Joe went. We see the scores there. 124 in the 7th frame for Mick Neylan, but I think...
Yes, the scorer has made a little mistake there. You see Velo in the 7th frame instead of a spare. That should be an 8 and then a stroke because he messed up. But he made up for it with that one. So after 7 frames, Velo 126 and Neylan 124.
Now Mick Neylan to bowl his 7th frame on lane 16. Bit high. Oh, he nearly got out of that one. High nearly left that 4-9 split, which is not an unusual leave for a ball which is going in high on the head pin. And so Mick, I think, breathes a sigh of relief to see the 4-pin fall. Otherwise, he faced the possibility of another error, and he can't afford that, especially with Velo sitting on a strike. He makes no mistake about the spare. Now he will bowl his next frame on lane 15. Remember that Mick started off on lane 15 by bowling 1 frame only. This is the conditions of match play. From that moment, both bowlers bowl 2 consecutive frames at a time, which means that Joe Velo will only have the 10th frame to bowl.
That's a better one. Whoops, said he with tongue in cheek. Left 3, that was quite heavy on the head pin. And going towards the Brooklyn side, 479, left 3 pins. And that's pretty difficult to try and achieve. I would imagine he'd try for it by going down the left-hand side of the nearest pin. That's the one that looks shortest, the one that's in the middle. And go down the left-hand side of that, try and take that across to the one on the right-hand side. He's going to give it a good try. Oof.
Actually, in the qualifying rounds last night, Mick actually converted that spare by deflecting the 4 across. Now Velo's sitting on a strike. Another double here and put him 10 pins ahead. He doesn't want the advantage though. He pulled that ball right across to the left-hand side of the head pin and nearly left himself the 3-10 leave, which is known as the baby split in 10-pin bowling terminology. But still, if he converts this frame, he still picks up 10 pins on Neylan.
Joe Velo's looking up. You can see him there just looking up to the scores, which are not only on our scoreboard but are projected up onto the ceiling above. There you can see that's what Joe's looking at as he comes back to bowl, just to see the position of the game.
This looks a good ball. Oh, a beautiful ball. It's always a very handy strike on the 10th frame, which means the pressure of converting the spare is gone. Now if he can double on this strike, that gives him the chance of an extra 10 pins ahead. As we see the scoreboard, 149 to Neylan.
That's what he's done, and Velo gets the advantage of the extra ball. He's a great conversationalist, Joe.
I don't think he was too...
Sorry, Ray. As you heard before, he was not so anxious to worry about the winning the game, but he dearly loved to bowl the perfect ball.
He's a showman, all right. It's the second time he's left that, although he left it on the other lane. Joe couldn't have been too happy with that second strike he got. Certainly was happy that it went, but I don't think he was too happy with the ball, and he was mumbling away to himself.
He finishes with 194, which is 2.5 below the average for the tournament so far. Oh.
That's Mick Neylan bowling his 10th frame. Remember, Neylan started off by bowling 1 frame on lane 15. Now he will bowl the 10th frame on lane 16 and took 7 pins. Now he's got to be very careful about this. For a right-hand bowler going across the lane like this can have its problems. But I don't think he's made much mistake about it. No. Nicely covered. Now a strike to Neylan on this bonus ball. Give him a total or a possible score of 169. Which puts him about 25 pins behind on the game.
And 25 pins is a long way to give your opponent in this class of bowling. It's great to see the companionship and the camaraderie of the bowlers. Notice then when Mick Neylan struck out at the finish that Joe Velo was one of the first to applaud.
Now in the second game, Joe will start on lane 15.
And he went Brooklyn side, which is the left-hander's pocket. Instead of the 1-3 pocket, he went the 1-2 pocket. And the result is that he missed taking the 5 pin.
Which incidentally is the important pin. It's called the king pin. There we see the scores. Neylan 169 in the first game, Velo 194, which means Velo is ahead on the match at the moment by 25 pins. Doesn't miss many spares, Dick.
No, he, as I said before, lets the spares look after themselves, takes out the spares and lets the strikes look after themselves. And he's a very seasoned bowler, a very good competitor, 35 years of age, and has been bowling now, I'd think, for about 8 or 9 years. He was probably bowling, I'd suggest, Ray, when young Mick Neylan was too small to hold a bowling ball.
Yes, and of course he would have bowled before he came out here, I think. Mick Neylan bowling his first frame on lane 16. Makes no mistake about this. Neylan started off the first game very well, in fine form with 2 strikes in a row. But since then he's collapsed slightly, and it's lane 15 which is giving him the problems here. I noticed that he's missed a single pin there on 15, and then he's had 2 splits on 15. See what he does now.
That's better.
Looks good there now. Oh, he's left that 10 pin again. And this was the pin he missed in the last game, the first game. And this, of course, is an awkward spare for a right-hand bowler because the natural swing is across the body. So he's going to give himself plenty of lane here. We'll follow the ball down on this one. No, he's made no mistake this time.
Meantime, in the junior final, Peter Ives from Rushcutter, New South Wales, 226 versus McLeese from Victoria, 169 in the first game. So Ives has opened up a very big lead over McLeese, his Victorian opponent in the junior final. But our attention on Joe Velo, who's left the 7 pin.
He's smiling to himself there. I think he was rather happy about the fact that the 10 pin left fell for him. Had the 10 pin not fallen, he would have had a very, very awkward 7-10 split frame, which is the classic split frame in bowling, almost the impossible one. Now, under match play conditions, Joe will bowl his 3rd frame on lane 15. See if he can start this string of strikes. Ooh, nice ball. Now Mick Neylan to bowl his third frame on lane 16. And he needs a strike here to keep in the match. Bit wide. Oh, it went. It went.
Yes,
lazy 10 pin there.
You got the 6 pin to bounce off the wall and take the 10 pin out.
Yes, he'd be very happy about that one. Called a lazy 10 pin. Notice how late it was falling.
It was almost like Tim Burr.
Now Neylan's back on lane 15 for his fourth frame, and this is his problem lane at the moment. Can he double? It looks good. Beautiful, yes.
Yes, he was very keen to get that one. You might have noticed there just his little mannerism as the ball headed for the 1-3 pocket. He was riding it all the way.
Yes, he's
and
a very
as the
positive.
Americans say, putting a little bit of body English on the ball. Joe, that's the 8 pin.
He's a very positive player, Mick Neylan. Rides the ball right down to the pins there. Well, that changes the state of the game slightly now. Notice that Mick Neylan doubled and Joe Velo didn't, so that Neylan is now at the moment 10 pins ahead on this game. And Joe's thrown this out the window. He's missed it.
Ray, I think he was bowling for the 8 pin instead of the 4, which was actually the one that was left up.
Yes, I don't know what his mannerisms meant then. He's shaking his head. Now we see on the scoreboard there that Neylan has 2 strikes, a double, and Velo has an open frame. We can see them in a moment. Now Velo needs to strike here to get back in the game. That's good. That's beautiful ball. Makes it look so easy, this fellow. His approach, his timing, his control is immaculate. Now Mick Neylan is sitting on 2 strikes. If he makes this a 3rd strike, he goes an extra 10 pins ahead. It's a bit wide. He's looking for it. Yes! Beautiful ball. Beautiful ball. Now that's 3 in a row, so that's an extra 10 pins ahead on this game, which now puts him approximately 30 pins ahead on this game. And now to bowl his 6th frame on lane 15. If he can double this time, he will go an extra 10 pins. You can see the 3 strikes in a row there. Can he do it? He's looking for it. He's looking. Oh! I think he's a bit anxious for the strike there. He didn't actually get it out on the lane as he would like to have done, and seemed to me to follow through a little too quickly. He's got that 10 pin up again. Oh, no worries. Well, that's the sign of a good bowler who can learn from his mistakes. Now Velo can he double on this frame? Cross. Oh no. Now Velo was sitting on a strike there. He had the opportunity to double and reduce the leeway by another 10 pins, but he failed to take advantage of the opportunity, so that he is trailing on this game by about 30 pins.
Which overall would give Neylan an advantage of about 5. Remember, he was trailing 25 pins on the first game. No worries about that one. Joe?
These 2 bowlers have met 3 times now under head-to-head conditions. This is the 4th time now in the finals. In the first meeting, Neylan won both games. The second one, Velo won both. And this morning, Neylan won both games again. They both seem to be having a little trouble with lane 15. As I was just saying, Neylan won both games in the match played meeting this morning, so that Neylan has a certain amount of confidence. He's won 4 games out of the 6 games that they've played each other. We see the score there, 106 to Velo on the 6th. Now then, Mick Neylan to bowl his 7th frame on lane 16. He's looking for it, and it's there. All of these bowlers have their characteristic gestures or antics. When they see that ball going in for a strike, they just can't help themselves. Now that strike puts Neylan in a very advantageous position. If he can double on the 8th frame now on lane 15, he will go an extra 10 pins ahead on this game. Let's watch the ball go down. No, he's not too happy with it. Oh, it went. Wasn't too happy with it. He thought he'd thrown it a little wide, but the 4-pin coming off the lane there gave him what he was after, an extra 10 pins ahead. Oh, and luck favours Velo also. Now Joel bowled his 9th frame on lane 15, and if he can double here, he will match that double strike of Neylan's. Otherwise he's in a worse position. He's looking. Yes, that's there. It's there. Very cool character, Joe Velo. Now Mick Neylan to bowl his 9th frame on lane 16, and he is sitting on a double strike. The 3rd strike here, as we can see on the scoreboard there, will give him another 10 pins. He's looking. I don't think he's too happy with it though. He wasn't quite sure whether he was going to get a strike or not. He'd thrown it a little wide and it didn't quite come up, which is a little light in the pocket, which meant that the 3-pin kicked the 6-pin around the 10-pin, and he has this awkward 10-pin to pick up. That spare gives Mick Neylan a score of 187 in the 8th frame. And he will play his 10th frame now on lane 15. We see the scoreboard. Neylan ahead by approximately 40 pins on the 7th frame. Bit high. Oh, he got it. It was a very high hit, and as you can see from his usual, or the lack of his usual gestures, he wasn't really looking for a strike there. Now this gives him a position of doubling on this strike here for another 10-pin advantage. Didn't ride this time, and it's again. Oh, luck is favouring this fellow. Luck is favouring Neylan at the moment. Both strikes there were a little lucky, perhaps we can say, although a good bowler makes his luck. A good working ball scatters those pins around. Now he will bowl his 2nd bonus ball on lane 15 for a maximum of 237. That's a better ball. It's the ball we're used to from Mick Neylan. Now those 3 strikes give him a total of 237 for the 2nd game. Joe Velo, his 10th frame on lane 16. Ooh. He had the opportunity there to double, but only took 9 pins. No mistake there. Now that spare entitles Velo to 1 bonus ball, and if he strikes, his score will be 195. Yes, there's a strike for a total of 195 for an overall score.
Score Velo 389 to 406, which we'll show you on the scoreboard pronto. 406 to Neylan, 389 to Velo, and that's a 15-pin advantage after 2